Hey, it's Nick, and today I'm going to be doing an introduction to a web application that I've created using Java EE technologies. This will sort of simulate a user logging into their bank's website and viewing information about their accounts. So I'm going to be using Java servlets, java.jsp files, HTML files to do the presentation and get input from the user. We'll be using the JDBC to connect to a MySQL backend. We'll be using Ant to create our WAR files that we'll be deploying to a Tomcat server. So we've got a lot of things cooking and a lot of things that need to be installed and working right before you can get this project off the ground. And that's what I'm going to be talking about in this first presentation. So you'll need to have Tomcat installed, and you need to make sure that it's started and working. You need to install Ant. You'll need an IDE like Eclipse that I'm using here. You'll need MySQL installed and configured. And I'm going to be including a data dump that you can import in your if you're using MySQL. You can open up Workbench and you'll be able to import that data dump, and that'll set up a schema, an ATM schema that will have the tables and the columns and some data entered in it already, and that way you'll be able to use this. You'll be able to use the back end, and you won't have to go in and configure anything yourself. Everything will already be there and in place, and it should work exactly the way that I demonstrate on my machine. So once you have those things all installed, and you download this project and want to follow along with me, you're going to need to do a couple of customizations on your machine in order to build the application. So when we want to build a web app using Java EE technologies, we need a program like Ant or Maven to build our project for us. And essentially we want to create a WAR file that we will deploy to Tomcat server. And a WAR file is not unlike a jar file that you may be familiar with creating in Java. You could double click on it and run it like a web application, or run it as a desktop application. But the WAR file is a web application. So they're similar in that regard, and they're similar in that they're kind of a zipped up representation of your project that you develop. You won't have .java files in there. You'll have the compile.class files in there instead, but you'll still have a similar hierarchy. So let's look at these scripts in this XML file real quick. This build.xml, this is a file that Ant will use to create our WAR file. And I have some good commenting in here, so it should be pretty clear what's going on. The thing you want to pay attention to is where I have a string that's pointing to directories on your computer. If you download this file, yours will be the exact same here, but from here on you'll need to put in your specific path. So where you have this lib directory, it'll be different than mine, and you'll need to look at these three files and make sure you have everything pointing to your installation. And those are the only customizations you should have to do on this project to get it running. And I'll try to point these out as I go through the file here. That's the first one. The source one I'm already setting up. Over here I'm setting up the source, and it's pointing to my source folder right here. So we're going to go through here. We're going to set the targets. We're going to clean it up. get a directory ready, set up the make directory, set up the directory structure of the war file, and we want this to be similar to how we are set up in our project in the IDE here. And then we're going to start copying in the files to these directories that we just created. We're going to copy all the jar files in lib. I'm specifically copying in the JUnit jar file. You may not need to do this. This project shouldn't have any dependencies on JUnit, but I was using it for some testing. I'm not going to be demonstrating that, but you probably won't need to have that. But it's not gonna. It shouldn't hurt anything. You may get an error that it couldn't find this file, and if you have that, just comment it out or delete it. But we're gonna compile the all of the Java files and all of our packages. We're gonna compile all those and stuff them in the directory, and then we're gonna grab all the HTML, JPEG, PNG, and JSP files here in the source week 12 package. And I'm specifying that I only want those because I don't want the batch files or the war file. I don't want to deploy those to the server. So that's something to keep in mind. If you need to, if you need something else or if you don't need something else, this is where this is the way that you can do that. And then the destination is gonna be ATM web app 2.war. You can name that whatever you want. You just got to remember, if you change that, that's got to be changed in a couple different places. But this ATM web app 2, this is where we're going to navigate to on our Tomcat server to begin our web application. So you need to have the build.xml in place, and then you're going to run this build web app batch file, and we're going to set up our Java home, our ant home, a path up to where that build XML file is, destination folder where you want to create that war file, and then the source for your project. And then this bit here is where ant actually does its work of creating that war file for us. So again, remember that you're going to need these, all these set commands, you're going to need these all pointing to where you have these things installed, where your Java home is, where your ant home is, where your build XML file is, where you want the destination folder to be. You can set this wherever you want. Just know that what you change here is going to change what happens in deploy, because the deploy batch file is just going to grab that war file that ant creates and copy it to the web apps folder on the Tomcat directory, which we'll talk about in a second. So after we've created the war file will be right here where we specified that it should be. This file just going to copy it into our Apache installations web apps folder. So again, remember, these are going to be different on your computer. So let's run these batch commands and get our application deployed. I'm going to first delete. I've already deployed this when I was testing it, so I'm just going to delete these and do a fresh deploy here so you can see what happens. You're going to want to navigate to your source week 12 where you have the build web app and deploy batch scripts. You're going to run it. It's going to do its work. Hopefully you get build successful. If you don't, then it should give you some good information about what went wrong, and most likely you'll have one of those paths is not set right or something, but it should be pretty easy to troubleshoot if you do get an error here. So once we built it, we can deploy it. And you can see that when we deployed it, it created this this web app 2 .war file here. And since I already had Tomcat running, Tomcat automatically created this directory for us. And this is going to correspond to what we have set up in the build. So you can see that all the HTML and JSP files that we wanted are in there at the top level. It created the webinf, metainf gets created automatically. It created an images folder, and again this webinf has the library stuff that we need, and it has all of our compiled classes, and these all correspond to what we have from our project. So let's open up a web browser and look at our application. When you first install Tomcat, the way you test it is to just go to localhost 8080, which this is the port that Tomcat uses, and hopefully you see this page that shows that you have it working okay. And then we want to go to our application, we go to ATM web app 2, which is the exact same name as our war file. You don't want to put .war there or anything, you just put ATM web app 2. And we can see that our application's up, and in some of the presentations that will follow, I will get into the servlet and JSP and HTML and Java code that I've created to make this application work. So thanks for watching.